Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, so if you're a regular podcast listener, you're probably like, an episode not on a Tuesday. That's a little different. So welcome to a not regularly scheduled episode, our first episode in the Booked Out Week interview series. So today you're going to get to hear from Katy Boyk, who is an incredible brand and WordPress website designer. And my goal with these episodes, with this interview with Katy and two more to come next week, is to show you what's possible in your business. So you've heard my story on this podcast time and time again. I talk about my journey as a designer, all that sort of stuff. But this time I'm interviewing three friends who are also designers who have all gone through my program, Booked Out Designer, and they are going to be sharing their story with you, how they got into business, pain points along the way, what helped, what didn't, where they are right now in their journey, various tips for how they market themselves, and all sorts of really cool things. So right now you're hearing Katy's interview, and then next week you'll hear two more incredible interviews kicking off first on Monday. And then tomorrow, you're going to hear a solo episode, just me and you chatting, plus some other podcasts along the way next week. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss all the incredible episodes over the next few days. I'm about to just be dropping one like every single day. We're going to have a lot of podcasts coming out. So if you're someone who's like, I binged every episode and want more, you're about to get a lot more episodes right now. So in addition to all the amazing free content coming on my podcast, help you grow your business during Booked Out Week, there are some super special promos and deals for you if you join Booked Out Designer during this 5-day period. So I'm talking really cool bonuses like group coaching calls, even a live financial class with my bookkeeper. And that's just a few of the awesome things. More to come next week. So make sure again that you're subscribed to the podcast on my email list. Booked Out Week is October 24th through 28th. And if you're not sure if you're on my email list, and if you just want to get like my awesome new guide to help you book more clients, go to elizabethmccravey.com/ASAP. It is a guide there all about how to find your first or next paying client ASAP. So if you sign up for that, you'll be added to my email list. And this guide, super incredible. I worked really hard on like basically coming up with ways you might not be thinking of to help you book clients, whether it's your next client or your first client if you're a new designer. So go get that, elizabethmccravey.com/ASAP, and stay tuned for Booked Out Week next week, where you're going to hear all the cool stuff, all the new changes to Booked Out Designer, and the cool bonuses you get for joining during Booked Out Week. So let's dive into this one though. Like I said, I'm interviewing my friend Katy Boyk. She is such an inspiration. I loved getting to like walk through her whole business story with her during this episode and all the twists and turns of how she got to where she is in her career. It was really interesting. She has a lot of different like milestone moments in different directions she went at different times. So here's some quick highlights just to think about that you'll catch as you listen to this interview. So Katy shares about how her time as a yearbook editor revealed her love for design. So if anyone can relate to having done random design, passion, project type stuff in high school, you'll be able to relate to that part of Katy's story. She talks about how she dropped her art major in college and that whole experience, what it was like quitting her 9-to-5 cold turkey. Katy shares her experience of starting a blog and actually selling the blog for a 5-figure price tag, which is really cool. Katy also realized a call to leave her Christian blog to do website design. And we talked through like how that was like kind of made her feel like she was called away from ministry, but she realized she can actually serve God through helping others in her website design business. We talk about dealing with imposter syndrome and about being a WordPress designer specifically and how that's different from other platforms. We also talk about Katy's experience with Booked Out Designer and how she quickly landed her first $6,000 website design project after joining, and different things that she learned through the course. So much more than that. Again, it's a really incredible interview. I'm excited for you guys to hear it and really just to get an insider peek into me and Katy's conversation. So without further ado, here's my convo with Katy. All right, guys, welcome back to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. I have the lovely and talented Katy Boyk chatting with me today. And we've actually been talking like 20 minutes already, just about all the things. We should have been recording it, but now we're like, okay, we're going to talk on the mic recorded. But Katy's a super talented brand and WordPress designer. And we connected like 2 years ago now. It's been a long time. When Katy joined Booked Out Designer, when I like first beta launched this, so you were one of the very first people to join when I opened the course. And you've had so many wins and so much growth in your business since then, and growing and evolving to like different offers and who you're working with and what you're charging, all the things. So we're going to like dive into all of it today, including going back to the beginning of your business and talking through like the whole journey to get here. So welcome, Katy. I'm excited to chat.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Okay. So to start, tell everyone like a bit, I know I just said what kind of design work you do, but tell a little bit about like who you're working with, what you do in your business, where you are in the world, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I live in Surprise, Arizona, and I'm a website designer specifically for WordPress. I got started just designing with Elementor, which is a popular page builder. And now I've moved primarily over to designing with the Cadence theme and the Cadence blocks plugin. And I primarily work with content creators and online service-based businesses. So people who are only marketing themselves online and create a big volume of content monthly. So that's what I do, and I absolutely love it.
Yes. Okay. Remind me where in Arizona you are.
Surprise.
It's where, Surprise. Oh my gosh. Okay. When you just said I'm in Surprise, Arizona, I took that as like, I'm in Surprise, Arizona. I was like, that's an interesting way to say that, but I'm going to ask her. That's funny. Okay. I did not know that was the place.
City of Surprise. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's such an interesting name.
The Kansas City Royals and the Texas Rangers do their spring training.
Okay.
So there's a lot of baseball out here because it's beautiful, in the winter. So.
Okay. Maybe I should know where that is, but I did not know that name, but that's really cool. And I love Arizona.
Close to Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I've been to Phoenix quite a few times. Okay. And then, and you're a mom too. So we didn't say that, but your mom, you said kids are 10 and 13, right?
Yep. I've been married for 14 years. I have a 13-year-old son his name is Reed, and a 10-year-old daughter. Her name is Allie.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So let's dive back though to how did you become interested in design stuff at all in your life? Like, did you think you'd become a designer? Like, how did that like interest start for you?
Yeah. So in preparation for this interview, I was writing down my story and trying to figure out like how it all kind of came together. And the point of which I really got interested in design was in high school. So I actually tried out for a cheerleader and didn't make it one year. Like I was in cheerleading all the way up until my senior year, didn't make it. So I really got into the yearbook as just an extracurricular, and I became the co-editor, and I absolutely loved it. So with yearbook, there's journalism and photography and design and, colors and typography and figuring out this whole world of graphic design. And that was kind of where I got introduced to graphic design and design overall. And so I knew from there, I wanted to pursue graphic design in college. And so then I went to college and I did 3 semesters in art school. I wound up quitting because one night I literally pulled an all-nighter. Like I was awake for 24 hours, constantly stressing about this 3D art project that I had to do. And I got a D on it. And I was like, clearly art school is not for me. I'm not cut out for this. So I quit and I pursued a different major. I wound up getting my degree in hospitality management in 2010. And then I went on to become an event director at a business club, a country club, and later a 4-star hotel. And so that was the entry point of my career. But ironically, my favorite part in the event industry was creating the brochures for brides to come and look at our facility. So our chef would design new menus. And so I would create all these beautiful designs in different tools. And that was my favorite part, was like trying to work on the marketing to attract people to come and work for our facility, more than it was like the sales process and closing the deal and all of that stuff. But that was kind of my entry point into design, even though it kind of took a left turn.
Yeah, that's so cool. And what was the 3D art project? Like, what were you doing that you got the D on?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I was a 3D art class. I don't remember the exact project I was working on, but I remember when I went to art school, they told every student that if you are expecting to get an A, like just go ahead and take that off the table. Because
that's how my classes were too. It was like B was an A, was the way it was like set up.
And I was like, art is so subjective. What do you mean? And really, I think they do it that way. Like they really try to break everyone who's in art school, so because it is really tough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for me. In high school, I was like a waitress and a hostess. And so I was like, I'll do something that I'm familiar with. And that's the reason why I fell back on hospitality management. Event management was really fun in and of itself, but ultimately it became very stressful. I was working nights and weekends, and my husband and I had schedules that were off. We were raising our kids at a very young age. I was 21 when I had my son. So trying to build a career and also raise two babies at the same time, working nights and weekends, it was very, very stressful. So eventually I quit, actually on a whim, and the hotel walked me. And so they said, see you later. They walked me to my car. It felt like I got fired. It was a devastating experience, actually. And I had no plan B, no way of making more money afterwards, not sure what I was going to do next. I wound up working for my parents' company after that, doing HR, finance, a little bit of marketing, working for their small IT business that they owned. So that's kind of the next progression. But
yeah. So when you quit that job, were you thinking like, I'm giving my 30 days notice, and then they like walked you out kind of experience, or what was that like?
Yeah, it was super emotional. Like I was an emotional wreck, just like, I can't do this anymore. It was just so many stressors. And so because it was just so highly emotional, and I was in sales, ultimately event sales, I even handled the fulfillment of the event at the day, but ultimately I was in sales. Like I had to go and get the business, book the business, and then make sure that they had a great event. And so I quit, and they were like, well, she's in sales, so pull her. And they just walked me to my car. And at the time I was using the hotel phone exclusively that they provided to me. Don't ever do that if you're in a job. Always have a personal phone and your work phone too. And so like I had no way to communicate with my husband. I got home and I emailed him. I was like, I got fired. I'm not fired, but like I felt like I got fired. I quit. Yeah. And he encouraged me to do it. Like he knew the whole time that I was going to make this decision, but it was really stressful.
Yeah, gosh. And that is, and yeah. So during that time, you said you were working a lot of nights and weekends away from your family. Like, were you I feel like that'd be so stressful. I know we were just talking before we started recording that like, I'm in like the like first year motherhood phase. And that's around when you would have been as well. Like, just, I can't imagine working so much and then also having kids to take care of.
Yeah, it was really intense. And I get a lot of self-worth from work. I don't know where that comes from, but I always threw myself into work and wanting to do a really great job. And so there were on days where I actually had events, I would be there at 8 a.m. and wouldn't leave till 10 o'clock at night, just because on the event day, I would also have to be there to meet with other brides and other people who wanted to host the event and give them a tour of the facility. So they were really long days. And then I would have Mondays off, and my husband would work on Mondays. So we only had one day as a family. And if I still sent the kids to daycare, because they went to daycare Monday through Friday, it was just a point of contention in my marriage, and we were fighting all the time. And it was just like, once that stress was gone, our marriage started to thrive again. So quitting, I don't regret, but it felt like a rash decision in the moment.
Yeah. But then it's such a good one though, like you're saying, for your marriage and your family and your own mental health and sanity. And that's a scary thing to do, right? You quit a job that was made sense for you and that you had gotten a degree for, without a plan B. But yeah, I think so many people can relate to like wanting to do that or feeling it like, I don't know what the plan B is, but I feel like I cannot do this anymore. And you say you worked for your family's IT company after, but tell us more about like what happened in that period.
Yeah. So they were so kind to be like, well, we'll hire you on. We're not exactly sure where you're going to fit, but you'll just kind of wear all the hats. And so I did finance and HR and marketing, and that was great. I was really thankful that I had a fallback plan, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know it, but that was my fallback plan. And this is part of my story where I can start to see God working in it. And like, as an entrepreneur, I needed the sales skills in my event job. I needed the HR and the marketing and I needed all of those skills to be successful as an entrepreneur now, but I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, oh, this isn't necessarily my calling, but it's something to do right now. So I really didn't know what the next step was. And I felt bored at that job just because it wasn't what I absolutely loved to do. So at that point, I went and got a side hustle, quote unquote, and I started an MLM company. And that was when I got introduced to the world of online marketing, because I was trying to figure out how to promote my company's products and opportunity and all of those things. And so I started my first website. So that was my first introduction to trying to build a website and build a personal brand. And I absolutely hated prospecting and cold calling and DMing your friend from high school. Hey girl, it's been a while. I hated all of those strategies, but I loved attraction marketing. Mm-hmm. And so figuring out how to do lead magnets and get people on my list and nurture them and, all of those things I absolutely loved. And that's how I got started into the world of websites and online marketing.
So were other people in the network marketing company also building their own website and doing email marketing and stuff like that? Or were you more like unique in doing that?
So I found this company who I actually wound up going to work for later. But this company was creating WordPress websites for specifically people in the company to market their products and services. And so I just got connected to this community of people who were all trying to market themselves on their websites, but typically that's not standard in the industry. A lot of people say, oh, you don't need a website, you don't need a blog, just send people to a form on, Google Forms or something like that and get interest and follow up. And so I definitely was not inside of the norm of like top business leaders at the time, but that's the way I wanted to market. I wanted to attract people to me without me having to go feel like I had to fish for prospects all day, every day.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, it sounds like you were being very smart and business savvy already, like at that point. Yeah. So, okay. So then though you did leave that company, and what happened next with that?
So I, wound up leaving my parents' company because the website, three guys that built this little website platform with WordPress, they built a proprietary theme with kind of their own page builder. And I was really involved in that community and helping people. And so they were like, why don't you come and be a partner? But it's a conflict of interest for you to still be promoting the thing that I was doing with my MLM company if I was going to serve those clients. So I was like, I will happily walk away from that and I will go be a partner in this business. And that was really fun for a long time. I got to lead all different clients with different marketing trainings and teaching them how to build their websites and grow their marketing. And so that was really fun time in my life. I was also, first of all, I was like a community manager in a Facebook setting. Then I kind of graduated into a full-blown account manager. So we would take on custom client projects. I wasn't the one designing. I would send those over to the developers and the designers, but I was the one having those conversations with the clients and asking them what they wanted and helping them create the vision and communicate that to the designer. So that was really helpful. And then of course, doing those trainings weekly live in our Facebook group. So that was an instrumental experience for me, but I never did the design. So I was like, I'm not a designer. But ultimately, as I was teaching, I wanted to figure out a way to be a case study. So that's why I started a blog in 2018. So I was like, I'm going to show people that I know what I'm talking about. I want to show myself too. And so I started my own blog and kind of got into that whole world of just marketing and promoting. It wasn't my own brand. I built just a random name, website with a random name. And that was really fun to explore.
Yeah. Okay. And with the blog, were you seeing that as a business, or were you like, I know you said it was like a case study, but did you think it, because spoiler alert, it like was a business. But like, did you see it that way at first, or was it more like just, oh, I'm just doing this, not really thinking that much of it?
Yeah, for a little while there, I felt a little frustrated. I was like, guys, I know that if you just implement the things that I'm teaching, it can work for you. For some of my clients who just kind of were feeling stuck. And so I wanted to show them, hey, if you implement this strategy, look, you can get this amount of traffic, or you can monetize with this. So I really wanted it to be a way to serve my clients, but things in the business were a little bit rocky. I was paid as a partner. So if the company had a bad month, my paycheck got a direct hit. And so having that blog as well was also kind of a way for me to try and test monetization strategies so that I can kind of have a plan B. I also just really wanted to work on something that was my own, because I felt completely out of control in that circumstance where it was like I was putting in all of this time and effort and not being paid fairly for it. And so that was really frustrating. So it's kind of a two-part where I wanted it to be a case study to really serve my clients. I loved serving those clients. But ultimately, I also was feeling unsatisfied with kind of how the pay structure and the internal admin stuff was going. And eventually it got to the point where it was too many months consistently where I was losing my paycheck, not losing it altogether, but it was just a significant hit, and it was demoralizing. So I was like, I would rather go and build something on my own, even if it's not making the money I want it to right now, but I completely believe in it. And I have the faith in my skills and my ability to go create something that I can monetize, rather than not getting a full paycheck and feeling like I'm not worthy, of really getting what I'm worth, so to speak. I mean, I hate that phrase because the money I make doesn't have anything to do with what I'm worth technically, but for a lack of better phrase.
Yeah.
So
I get that. And yeah, it sounds like a lot of being pushed towards business stuff has been like part of your story too, of like nudging you towards where you are now. And with the blog, I feel like your story with it is so cool from what I know of it, but like you eventually niched down to being a Christian blog for women. What were you writing about? Like how often, tell us more about the blog.
Yeah. When I first got started with it, I just wanted it to be about sensible living for women. Yeah. So the website was hellosensible.com, and I wanted it to just be about sensible living for women. I didn't know that I needed to niche down, but like right when I got started, I was doing everything with like crazy SEO research. So I would find the best keyword that I knew I could rank for right away. So like 0 calorie foods was the first blog post I ever wrote. The second one was butt workouts for women. It was all over the place.
That's funny.
And eventually I niched down into the Christian niche and decided that I really wanted to help women boldly share their faith, and live intentionally in a way that honors and serves God. And so the blog kind of took a detour and a more focused approach. And that was really great. But ultimately I found a community of bloggers as I was pursuing that adventure full time. And that's where I got connected and really got to help and serve other people. So a lot of bloggers are just constantly asking questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? Yeah. I'm struggling with this. And anytime there was a website or a design question, I was just naturally helping and truly helping from, oh, I know this. I'll just answer this really quickly. Pretty quickly in a lot of those Facebook groups, I became the resident expert on things about certain WordPress plugins and design questions. And so then eventually it kind of snowballed and people started asking me for help. They're like, listen, you seem to love this and I don't. Can you just do this for me? And I had a lot of imposter syndrome with that, but I did. I started taking on little page designs and then full website designs. And at the time they were like $50 for a page design, $100 for a page design, something really cheap. And then I would do my first full website design project was like $500. It was nothing, but I felt like, oh, I'm just helping. This is not what I do full time. I'll just help and I'll make some extra money on the side. In fact, when I first started taking on clients like that, I never identified as a website designer. If I tried that title on, immediately it felt inauthentic and I could not handle it because I was like, I'm not a website designer. I don't know CSS. I don't know coding. I didn't get a degree in this. I'm just helping people because, I know they like what I'm doing on my website. And so I'm happy to share what I've learned along the way, but I've never felt like an expert.
Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Yeah. And how do you feel like you've overcome that since then, of that being able to call yourself a website designer confidently? Besides, obvious thing was that you have worked with many clients now, and built tons of sites to help them all be successful. But what are some things for another designer or other service provider listening who's like, I can't call myself that? What would you say to them?
I would say it all comes down to the evidence. So we have negative thoughts all the time. And most of them, I would say 90% of them are untrue. And it's just the enemy trying to attack us. But anytime that I would feel like I'm not enough or that's not my title, I would go back to the evidence that points to, no, but you did help someone get a result. You did redesign their website. And I have before and afters, and it's a clear difference of where they started to where I was able to take them. I had one client at the very beginning. This was a gentleman that he had a blog, and I redesigned his website. It was $500 project, but he gave me a testimonial and said, now after the redesign, one of his blog posts finally went to the first page of Google, and it was specifically from the redesign. So he was doing everything right with his content, but his website was slow. His website was ugly. Nobody wanted to visit it. And as soon as we did the redesign, it bumped up to the first page of Google. And so it was those wins at the beginning where I was able to cling on to those and say, no, but you are helping. And honestly, I just had to take the next faithful step and take on the next project and help the next customer and be focused on serving rather than figuring out what my title was. Or I never felt like an expert, but I also just was constantly focused on serving.
I love that advice of that's seriously such great advice, focusing on the serving versus figuring out your own title. And that naturally comes in, because it is at some point, it is just natural. You start to just be oh yeah, I'm a website designer, but I can relate to that too, feeling oh my God, I cannot call myself a business owner or a designer or anything. But yeah, when you're focusing so hard on that, it's hard to make that naturally become what you're calling yourself.
Yeah. And whenever you take on the next project and the next project, and the other thing I noticed was almost every one of my clients, not everyone, but almost every one of my clients were referring my next project. Yeah. So it was people are not only getting results and they loved the process as well as the result, but then they're telling their friends about me, and then they're booking with me right after. So that was just another piece of evidence that, and through that process, my clientele started leveling up. And once I started showing amazing results for different clients, then I started getting a different breed of client, where instead of working with the $500 project, I'm working with people who, one of my clients has 500,000 monthly page views. And I'm how am I working with these amazing people who have already created incredible businesses? They're, 6-7-figure bloggers in some cases, but they have amazing content. It's just their user experience and their design overall isn't where it needs to be. At some point, they have to work with a designer to kind of level up, because what got them there isn't going to get them to the next level. And that's kind of where I've been able to come in. And it's been a really fun experience, but ultimately it's just kind of been like project stacking, where my skills improve. The clients that I'm attracting have also been improving over time.
Yes, such good advice and all that. I feel like people need to rewind and re-listen to everything you just said. Yeah, and that's cool too. I like seeing your journey. It is like such a common thing that it's one project at a time and growing and changing until you get to the kind of clients you're wanting to work with. Okay, to back it up a little bit though, let's talk about selling your blog. And then what happened next. And that's around the time you joined Book.Designer and all that. Tell us about selling the blog though, because I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So at some point, as I was going all in on my blog, people started asking me for help with website design. And even though I didn't identify as a website designer, I found myself like more and more of my time was focused on design rather than my actual blog. And at some point, it felt like a burden. Like I wasn't able to focus on the blog. And so I decided to sell it. February 2021, I sold it for a 5-figure price tag. I was able to find a blogger in a community that I was already connected to who wanted to purchase it. She had a group of bloggers. And what's really, really cool about this story is as soon as this girl introduced me to her partnership of people who buy blogs. Then the guy that I actually did all the financing through and all the payment went through, I wound up redesigning his website immediately after the sale. And then he referred 3 other bloggers all within their partnership, and I redesigned all their websites. So it was totally a God thing that it was like it was the right step, because it was just like affirmation and confirmation that this was the right thing. But it was scary selling, because I felt like because I was a Christian blogger, I was writing a ton of Christian content all the time. I kind of felt like I was selling out on my calling. Like, really, you're walking away from something that is so meaningful to me. Like, why would you walk away from it? And the people who bought it, I should say, they just took it in a lifestyle direction. So they don't write Christian content on it anymore. If you go to that website, you're going to find a myriad of content there. But I had to really trust God that like this was the next right step, and that I could still honor God and use my gifting as a website designer to serve the world. And he has shown me faithfully time after time that that's the case. Like I get to write about faith-based business on my blog a lot like you do. You were my inspiration for boldly sharing my faith as a personal brand and a website designer. I've been watching your journey, and that's been such a huge thing for me. But yeah, the sale, I kind of felt like, oh my gosh, I'm selling out, but I didn't.
I love that perspective. Like, yes, we don't have to be doing ministry type work as Christians for our work to be a ministry still in other ways. So that's, great perspective. Hey, I'm interrupting this episode because I've got a free resource that I think will help you, and it'll just take a few seconds to download. So I just created a new guide for designers on how to book your first or next paying client as a designer ASAP. So in this guide, I'm sharing ways you might not be thinking about for getting clients in your business, ideas you might not be trying, things you may have never even heard of that you should be doing, with specific examples and how-tos. So if business feels slow right now with bookings, or if you're a new designer and you're like, I'm trying to get my business off the ground, I'm trying to find my first few paying clients, this guide is seriously going to help you in your business. So you can go download it at elizabethmccravey.com/ASAP, short for getting your first or next paying client ASAP. So it's a totally free guide, and I really hope it helps you as you build your design business. Now, back to the episode. And okay, and the decision to sell, like how long of a decision process was that for you? Because I know clearly you're saying it was like, you were like, oh my gosh, am I leaving my calling? Was it like a longer drawn out process, or like more like you knew when you knew?
So in 2020, at some point, I knew, and I was taking on more projects. I knew that I wanted to sell the blog. So I did inquire with a third party company to say, hey, what is my blog even worth? How much could I get for it? And I, had to go through the whole, P&L process, and just people combing through my books and seeing what my revenues were. And that was like an intimidating process. And even after I knew what the blog was worth, I was like, ooh, what if I keep it and hold it for 6 more months and try to grow it even more? Then it would become worth even more. So that's ultimately what I did. So I knew, like, I had the inkling that I needed to sell it a lot sooner before I actually pulled the trigger on it. Plus, if you go through a third-party broker, they're going to take a huge commission from that as well. And so then in the new year, I think it was January, I was telling another blogger friend that I'm connected with, and she was the one who brought me the deal. I was like, my goal for this year is to sell my blog. And she was like, really? I'm in the market to buy a blog. And I was like, really?
Cool.
And she was like, no, but like, really, can I buy your blog? And I was like, are you serious? And so we were able to work out a price tag. And there's no commission that I had to pay out. It was providential in the way that it all worked out. And like I said, then their entire partnership group wound up becoming my clients, and that was fun.
That's cool. I mean, that's such an awesome story. And okay, last question on the blog. So, cause I'm just like so fascinated by this. How was your blog making money? Was it like through ads or what about? Okay.
Yep. Ads and affiliate marketing. Okay. The Christian niche is challenging to monetize. Ads typically aren't as high as other types of niches. So my ad revenue was actually pretty small. So I would really heavily rely on affiliate marketing as well. And there was funny enough, Dayspring is the name of the company. They just actually closed down their entire affiliate program, which was a huge hit for a lot of Christian bloggers. But they have a parent company called Mary and Martha, which is technically an MLM, but it was like 30 or 40% commission versus Dayspring's 13% commission. So I was like, I'm totally going to sign up for that, even though I don't necessarily like want to build a team or anything like that. And so I wrote a Christian gift guide for women, and I wrote how to become a Mary and Martha consultant. Those are my 2 blog posts, and I attracted several people to my team naturally from that. Wow. I was making consistent sales from that blog post. So it was like, those things were really, really great for monetization for the blog. So
fascinating. I mean, that's such like a different world. And I mean, I know too, like you can bring all that strategy you learned through building and selling a blog and the SEO. And like you were just saying, attracting people to a team, like all that with like your clients now. That's super awesome.
If there is a blogger that's listening, don't discount MLM companies to be a part of your blogging strategy. They typically have higher commission structures. I know that they have a bad rap, but they can be a great way to monetize your website if you're looking for a good option. You have to definitely pair up with a company that meets your values, but it's an option.
Yeah, no, and that's a great advice. So around then was when you joined Book.Designer, and you were one of the first people to join. So tell a little bit about that decision to join, and where you were in your business. Your business was more new, transitioning a lot then. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So February 2021, the deal officially went through with my blog. And that was the same month that I signed up for Book.Designer. So for all of the listeners, I am totally fangirling being on this podcast because I have looked up to Elizabeth for so many years. I've been binge listening to this podcast. I've been just soaking it all in. And then as soon as she said that she was doing a course, I was like, I will be the first one. I will be the first one.
I think you might have literally been the first or second person. So thank you.
And great. It's no surprise to me that you sold out. You were like, I can't believe I sold out. I'm like, no, I've been listening to your podcast forever. I've been craving the fact that you're going to launch this course. And the course was instrumental in my growth as a designer. I think it was really through going through all of the modules and lessons and just having your voice in my ear, like the confidence of you can do this, you can raise your prices, here's how to onboard your clients. Having that structure really helped me elevate my business overall from like an organizational perspective. In fact, that's like one of the best compliments that I get typically from my clients is how organized my projects are. And spoiler alert, it's Elizabeth's process, like to a T. I did everything that you said to do to onboard your client. And it's what I get a lot of testimonials about to this day. So everyone's like, I just aspire to be as organized as Katy is. And I'm like, they don't know that it's Elizabeth's process. I'm just implementing it.
You're doing so awesome with that. I love that. Okay. So you basically knew you wanted to join, from talking about it originally. And okay. So I want to talk about, let's see, I mean, you've had so many wins from like, you're good at sharing our Facebook group, first of all, and sharing, like helping people, sharing your wins and all of that. But I know you said once, like about you were kind of just saying this, but the client onboarding process, I guess I'd be curious to hear about like, what was your process like before a bit, and how has that evolved since Booked Out Designer, or other parts of your business that you'd rather talk about that? But I know that's something you've talked a lot about.
Yeah. When I first started doing projects for clients, everything was in, the Google workspace where I was doing Google Docs but everything was via email. And that was such a messy process. If I ever work with like another client who's working with another service provider of some sort, and they are not using some streamlined communication form, it drives me bananas. And I absolutely love like that Basecamp allows me to chat with people. And yes, the threads go back and forth via email and a client can email through, but I get onto my project board and I'm working it through my system rather than being in my inbox all day. I hated that. Yeah. And also I got onto your Dubsado program as well. So now I've got, proposals going out and they're really professional and they convert really well. And I've got the contracts and the invoicing. So like that whole system is just working seamlessly for me. I'm not even utilizing all of the features of Dubsado. A lot of it's kind of a manual process for me still, which is something I can improve upon. But just having the client acquisition and the client onboarding process going through Basecamp has been a game changer, because before I was just piecing everything together, and I would send someone a contract over Google Docs, have them like print it out and scan it. It was the worst.
Oh,
it's a terrible idea.
That's tough. Oh, scanning things. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I love that you get such good feedback from your clients about your process too. And you're such a big part of that too. You're warm and welcoming personality, like for your clients, I'm sure, but that's really cool. Okay. And then I know like pricing has been something too that shifted for you naturally over the years, but also after like learning some pricing stuff in Booked Out Designer. Could you share about like how, first of all, I know you booked a big project quickly. So let's talk about that, and then just pricing in general and your experience there.
Okay. Yeah. So the first, I don't remember who in the group, it was in our founding group, but someone was saying that they booked a huge project. I think it was like $5,000 to $10,000. I can't remember the exact number. And I was like chewing on that, like someone charged that amount of money. I wonder how I can get that as well. So then I had a referral come through, and that they weren't necessarily my ideal client, but they had a pretty decent size website. And I knew that redesigning it was going to take time and attention to detail. So it's like, they're a corporation even. I'm going to go ahead and just bid a little bit higher. So I booked that one for $6,000. It actually was a higher price tag than that throughout the project. That was a project that I learned all my business lessons from, basically. But it was game changing. I remember going into the Facebook group of Booked Out Designer and saying, oh my gosh, I just booked a $6,000 project. I can't believe it. Because like I told you before, some of my projects were like $500 or like $1,000. And so they were a lot cheaper. And so whenever I was able to land this big client, my confidence level just went through the roof. And I was thrilled. And I think it was just being surrounded with people who were also leveling up and who were sharing that they're able to take on these big price tags, that it gave me the belief in myself that I could also charge those rates. And from there, I've been able to book multiple projects that have been, like I have one project that's close to $10,000 that I'm still in the process of working with. But it's like these higher price tags are totally possible and doable with the right clientele. And it has nothing to do with my worth necessarily anymore. It's just like, I know that my skills are constantly improving. I over deliver on my service. And so I get to surprise and delight, like you talk about in the course. And so all of those things combined allow me to confidently charge what I'm charging. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like once your marketing's improved, your processes, and then your skill as a designer is literally always improving every single project. So it's like you can keep raising as that goes on. So right now, what would you say like average projects are for you, or like a range there?
This is a good question. In the new year, my projects are going to start at 3,500, and that's going to be for just like a basic 8-page WordPress website. If they need to add on WooCommerce or, a membership or other more advanced things, the project could go up. So I would say a good range for my clients right now. I've taken on projects for 1,500 or all the way up to 10,000. So it's a huge range. I even had some feedback recently from one of my blogging girlfriends. She was like, that's a huge range to put on your website. She's like, that might be scaring people away. And I was like, well, my mentor told me to give the price range so that I don't waste my time on calls. And I'm like, it's working for me. Yeah. So, I know it's a big range, but ultimately it comes down to what the client's project needs are. And then I get to accurately quote them out. But yeah, in the new year, I'm going to raise my prices. Right now, like if someone just needs a basic site, they would be like $1,500 for just like bare bones. And I would use like a template that I'd already created and things like that. So they're going to go up to $3,500 in the new year for the starting prices.
I love that. And I love the way on your website, your packages are presented very nicely. Your site's so beautiful, by the way. I love looking at it. Like it's very like crisp and clean, but still but not boring by any means is basically how I would describe it. Like in a very technical sense, it's like really fun, but not busy. You have a beautiful, very good design style. Yeah. Okay. So more on, I want to ask you a few more questions about like your business evolving and stuff. I guess one question. So for someone thinking about Book.Designer, wanting like more, like thinking about past the course, how has like the community and the coaching calls been for your business growth?
The community has been great. Because I can go in and ask any question that I realistically need. One thing I really love about the group in particular is that it's not about the tool that we're using, it's about the business that we're building. So in a lot of other groups, I might go ask a question of how do I tactically implement this thing with Cadence or Elementor or whatever the plugin is. Those are not the questions that we're asking in this group. The questions are, hey, I'm ready to hire a junior designer. Does anybody have like a job description that I can use? And someone actually asked that question yesterday, and someone was able to answer that for me really quickly. It's sharing the wins and having other people celebrate with you. It's just like the questions that are asked in the community are just a different level of question. It's not like how do I, do some tutorial? It's definitely just a different level of questions.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's not platform specific because you're doing WordPress and then there's Show It designers, Squarespace designers, other WordPress designers, Kajabi, Wix. Like there's such a big variety there, which is fun. So then that lets us not just talk like technical process. And there's people who don't do website design at all, but who are doing brand design or other types of graphic design. Yeah, really cool. Yeah. Okay. So a few more questions as we wrap up. First, I want to ask you, for someone just thinking like, hey, I want to become a designer. I'm like you, Katy. I'm in a 9-to-5 job I don't like right now. And I kind of have that, like, I'd love to yearbook too. I'd love to get into design. Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say work with clients one-on-one. First of all, if you are deciding, hey, this is the thing that I want to do, start with one-on-one clients and start with one person who will trust you to start to build your skill set. Even before that, though, just practice. You start a website and build your own thing. Try to start a blog on your own if you're not sure, even if this is something that you want to get started with, because you're going to learn so much about how to grow traffic and how to monetize your blog and what content will rank and a number of different things. So that's a good like learning ground, honestly. At times it feels like, man, I've had such a huge amount of success in a short amount of time if I just look at the last year and a half. But my entire career has been preparing me for this entrepreneur journey as a website designer. So just lean on your skills, hone those. Your skills are what's going to ultimately allow you to charge more. So whatever you can do to practice those skills is my recommendation, whether that's starting your own thing and trying to figure things out for yourself, or that's starting to work with people who are willing to pay you. You may even have to do a project for free, pro bono, just so that you can get a testimonial and have a success story, add something to your portfolio. But if you are wanting to start, I think it's like kind of the way my progression has been. It's been like, I've just taken that next faithful step and said, and it naturally came to me. I was in the blogging community. I didn't ever intend to become a designer, but that's naturally how God gifted me and how I was helping and serving people as other people were helping and serving me when I had questions. And so then it was just like, people started asking. And then now I have a steady stream of referrals. And so it's just, you just got to be faithful in growing your skills, working with people one-on-one, and it will come with time. That's my recommendation.
I love that. That's great advice. Okay, to close, I have a few questions for you. First, favorite thing about being a WordPress designer, even more specifically, I believe you said you're on Cadence now. Is that what you said? Okay. Mm-hmm. Even more specifically that, or just WordPress in general, like if the designer listening is like, oh, what web builder do I want to use? What would you say about WordPress?
WordPress, I would say, is a little bit more fussy to figure out at the beginning, because there's, private hosting you've got to go acquire, and there's plugins, and there's things like site speed you have to worry about. So, and I don't say that to scare you away, but it also depends on like who you want to serve. Yeah. Because I know with business owners who like don't want to manage any of that stuff, they're going to show it. And I know like you charge several $100s for your templates and things like that. So it's just a different clientele that we work with. Ultimately, I got into WordPress because WordPress is the GOAT for all things content creation and blogging. And if you want to monetize your website with ads, you're going to have to use something like WordPress in order to do that. So it really depends on what your goal is, I would say, and who you want to attract, and figure out what kind of clientele you want to work with, and then pick your platform from there. I absolutely love WordPress, but it's also like the only thing that I learned how to build a website with. So naturally, it just like, I just ran with those skill sets. So if you're someone like, I don't know CSS, I don't know HTML. And something that I wanted to share earlier that I wrote down was just that even though I don't know those things, that for a long time held me back as a designer, but I got over that, and I decided to just outsource the things that I am weak at. And it has helped me grow immensely. So now I have a developer on my team. I've recently created a partnership with another web development company, and they're going to do all of my site speed optimizations at the end of the project. So like things that I just either don't have the capacity to do because I don't have the skill set, or just don't like to do, I'm willing to now outsource and then just build that into my packages so that my client ultimately gets the result they want. I deliver the best product or service, but it doesn't necessarily have to be me who's the one doing it. So that's another piece of advice I wanted to share.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so cool that you're outsourcing in those ways. And with deciding to outsource those elements, have you run into any headaches or learning experiences yet with that? Or is it still newer to like, or even learning experience and headaches with like saying you're going to outsource and that being scary?
That was a huge concern for me because first of all, I wasn't sure how my business could afford it. Ultimately, I'm like, I'm still trying to make myself a full-time income, like scaling that to the point where I can hit six figures and all of those things. So it felt like a step back, felt like, oh, you're not ready for this yet. But ultimately, if I can give away a portion of my profits to someone who can help me deliver the project faster and in a much better way, then I have the capacity to take on more clients and work with more people. So I might have to take one step back to go two steps forward, but I'm totally willing to do that at this stage. It was a huge mindset shift around having the ability to outsource. But I think that if you are to the stage where you feel a little bit overworked, or you are not sure how to do a specific skill set, find someone who does. And then my advice is just to build that into your pricing and your packages. Yeah. So in the new year, everyone's going to get the site speed optimization service from an incredible web development company. And he is my single biggest referral source. And so it just naturally becomes this like reciprocation where I'm throwing business his way, he's throwing business my way. And so if you can find someone like that, and it may take some time, you may have to go through a few duds of people who don't do the job well in order to get there. But I would say it's worth like sifting through that and like getting through that process so that you can find someone that is reliable and you can work with.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And so cool to be able to like offer your clients that experience through those types of partnerships of like including all the things they need. So I love that. I love that advice. Okay. Next question. An unpopular opinion you have about design. Maybe it's about a design trend or about being a designer or just design or online business in general. Unpopular opinion.
Unpopular opinion. This is going to break all of the people who are traditionally trained as designers, but I don't use a design tool like Figma, or I can't remember the other names of them. Like once I have the client content and I have my kickoff call, I just immediately start working on the homepage of the website. I don't, create a mock-up and all of that. So part of that is because I wasn't trained to, and it's just the way my brain's wired to work. I'm sure that there's advantages to that, but at this point, like going and trying to learn that skill now would feel like a huge step backwards for me, and just like how I'm working with clients already. But if you're a self-taught designer like me, that step is not necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you're saying you go like straight into the software versus mocking up on like Illustrator, Figma, like you said, different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I also like to go straight to software, but I do mock up in Illustrator, but I don't know most of those other fancy softwares either that are like for mockups specifically. Because I went to school for design, but also that was like not a thing when I was in college. So it's kind of like, I did not learn those.
It also could be the tool that I'm using too. So like there's limitations within the plugins that I'm using. So I have to figure out how to design within the framework that I'm given. Whereas like if I were designing with something like Show It, you truly can build anything because it's, it's like a canvas, just the same way Illustrator or Photoshop is. But with WordPress, it's like, and specifically the theme and the tools that you select, you have to figure out what rules you can play by and what rules you can design by. So to me, it's just easier for me to go in there and start playing with the tool, even if it's like in a wireframe and I don't have all their content necessarily or all of their photos ready, but just getting it down in the softwares. So that's kind of my hot take.
Yeah. Hey, and you got to do what works.
I'm self-taught.
Yeah. You got to do what works for you though. And that's like great thing about when we think about processes in our business. Like you can hear someone else's process and it'd be like, oh yeah, that works for them. And it might not work for you in the way your brain works or what your clients need or your software. So yeah, I really love that. Okay. One more question I want to talk about, some things happening in your business, but I'd love to know, just to close on this conversation, like someone thinking about Book.design or who's thinking about joining right now, like you did like 2 years ago now, or over 2 years, I guess. What would you say to someone who's like, oh my gosh, I can relate to Katy. I'm thinking about Book.design, or like, what would you say to them?
I would say, first of all, when I invested in the program, it was a huge investment. So you did an amazing job having a pre-launch runway so I could plan for that expense. And so that was really, really helpful to me because I was like, I definitely want to learn from her. And I do the profit first method in my business. So I specifically put aside money before I ever pay myself, and it's worked beautifully. But I was able to take the money that I was planning on paying myself in a profit and investing that back into the coaching. So I know what it's like to make a huge investment when you don't feel like you're ready for it. And it has been the single greatest investment that I've made as a website designer. There have been other courses and that I could say that about learning SEO or, learning other skills. But if you are a designer specifically, and you want to learn the business side of design, Book.designer is hands down the best investment you can make. Because there's so many things that you don't know what you don't know. And Elizabeth, what are there, 90 lessons, something crazy? Like she walks you through everything, even things that I'm like not fully ready for yet. I'm like, ooh, I want to do that, but I'm going to have to table that. It's just nice having that content, knowing that I can come back to it at any time and continue to grow and continue to learn. It's not like okay, I consumed her course. That was it. Now what? It's like she's constantly adding things to it. And it's, there's always seasons where I can go back and refine certain processes. So it's been a really amazing investment for me.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing all that and for your kind words. I always feel funny asking questions like that on the podcast, but I'm like, I love hearing that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And if people get to join and hang out with you in the Facebook group and on coaching calls and stuff. So that's fun. Okay. So let's talk about where everyone can find you and all of that stuff. But first, we were talking about this for a while before we start recording, but you have a membership coming soon-ish. It probably won't be ready when this airs, but DIY Dream Site is the name of it, which I love that name. So tell us about that cool evolution of your business and then how people can get info on it.
Yeah. So first of all, I've been working with clients one-on-one for a year plus, 2 years almost. And I would say that's been great. And I still work with clients one-on-one, but I do have a lot of people who are coming to me now and they're like, hey, I'm not either ready to work with a designer or I don't have the income to do that. What's the next step? So I want to build a bridge to stand in the gap for people who maybe have purchased a website template or a theme in WordPress. They're not necessarily templates, they're themes, but people can have a beautiful theme, but then they're still missing a lot of pieces because not every theme is the one size fits all for the business. So I'm going to offer templates, tutorials, and coaching inside of this membership to help people build a profitable business online. So DIY Dream Site is coming. I'm hoping January 2023. And I'm going to do a soft launch like you did for like 30 members. And then from there, it'll be an ongoing membership that I maintain. But instead of having a template shop like you do, which I almost did, I have 3 themes fully developed, and I'm going to dismantle those and put those into my membership as templates that they can utilize. But I just decided that there was a huge gap in the market for people who buy a template, but then there's still that gap of they don't know what they don't know, and they need some eyes on their website saying, oh, hey, you need to change this copy, or you need to tweak this design, or this would convert better, or things like that. So I really want to provide that coaching as well.
I love that. And I love you seeing like a need within your niche and like figuring out how to solve that. I'm excited for you with all that. Okay. Yeah. Now tell everyone where they can find you to work with you for custom design, or just connect with you and follow along and see your beautiful website and Instagram and all that fun stuff.
Yep. You can go to katyboykin.com. It's KatyBoykin.com. And I'm at Katy, I can't remember if it's dot or underscore Boykin on Instagram. You can just type in katyboykin.com/Instagram/Facebook/YouTube, all the things. You can just go to my website and enter in the social channel and see if I'm hanging out there. I typically, I don't have a huge social presence right now just because I'm working so much with one-on-one clients, but YouTube will be my next thing that I pursue in the new year.
That's fun. Well, I'm excited for you to do that.
Thank you.
What kind of YouTube stuff will you be doing? Or do you know yet?
I already have 3 videos up right now, and they're all about Elementor tutorials, but I've since switched into Cadence. So there's going to be some tutorials about Cadence and building a WordPress website and things of that nature. But then there's also just going to be some other just helpful tutorials and tips about building a business online. And I'm an SEO nut, so I'll probably have a lot of SEO content up there too. But yeah. I debated between a podcast like you.
Yeah. Well, and for tutorials, it's so much easier to have a visual, but you could also always do both. Plenty of people do like their YouTube content in podcast format too. Yeah, you're great at SEO. I feel like your site ranks for so many things when I'm searched, and your site ranks for book.designer related searches too. Cause you have a little blur.
I don't have a post.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, oh my gosh, your site ranks so well, cause it's literally a blurb on your contact page. But it still makes it, I think it's on your contact page, at least if I'm remembering that correctly. Okay. Yeah. And it still comes up for like book.designer review, I think is what I typed in. I was like, oh, like there's Katy's site, like on her contact page.
And hot tip, if you are a designer and you don't offer website or design tips, like you don't work with other designers, do what I did. I put a FAQ on my contact page that said, I'm a designer like you. I'd like to work with you. And then my FAQ answers, and it's like, I'm not working with designers right now, but you can check out Elizabeth's course. And that's a great way to make affiliate income, and you can serve the people who are maybe checking you out. So
very smart. Yep. Love it. Well, I love this conversation, Katy. Thank you for coming on. Seriously.
Thank you for having me. Again, it's such an honor. I love everything that you put out. You do an amazing job, and I aspire to be like you.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey friend, thanks for listening all the way to the end of this episode. I hope you feel encouraged and inspired. If you loved this episode and you want more, I just got to tell you, you need to check out book.designer. I know I've already mentioned this episode, but in case you missed that part, it's my course and coaching program that teaches you how to build a successful business as a designer. Students literally call it the best course they've ever taken, jam-packed with value, worth every penny, and like having a seasoned mentor holding your hand through every aspect of running a design business. And it's the course that keeps on giving. You get access to any changes, future coaching calls in our community as long as the course exists. You'll get help with things like financial decisions, like when you need to hire a bookkeeper, how to find an accountant, things of that nature, templates to help you track your finances, my exact strategies to network your way to more clients in a relational and fun way, how to create a marketing strategy for your business that works for you and for your season of life. You'll learn how to run client projects from start to finish, including an entire module on discovery calls, things like onboarding, doing the brand project, doing the website project, calls with the client throughout the project, all the templates and forms that go along with that, and so much more. You'll also get a contract template that you can swipe and customize for your own business to use for your brand and website design projects, and so much more. It is a 90 module course, nearly 100 modules. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, as they say. There's a lot more to it, and you can learn more in the sales page. So I would say if that interests you, that sounds like something that could be a good fit for the season of business you're in, go check it out at elizabethmccravey.com/BOD. Feel free to message me on Instagram or shoot me an email with any questions, and I'm happy to chat with you. And I hope to see you inside our community.